First Spin. Welcome to First Spin, a show where I learn how to use the Parallax propeller without having any prior programming experience. Rather than do this on my own, I have enlisted the help of two experts.
Is normally what we would say at the beginning of the show, but this week, we're gonna allow one of our listeners to hijack the show.
Really?
Oh.
Really.
What do you mean, hijack the show?
We got an email this week.
Oh, we did. You're correct.
So you could pull that up, Addie. And
Brian McMillan. Wait. McMillian. Oh, that's a good name.
Boy, get his name right, why don't you?
That's because there's too many L's, and I'm nearsighted, so it like
all those L's just turn into W's.
No, they just turn into L's. That's why I said McMillan instead of McMillian. It makes a difference. So, hey, you're back. Awesome. Insert hallelujah chorus here. Hallelujah. Welcome. I have a couple of questions. First, can you tell me what unit of measure a crap ton is? Addie referenced it when she was giving out wire count on the I2C episode, and I've searched all of my engineering reference books for a conversion factor with no luck. Is this some new metric measurement? This is a new Addie measurement.
It's just a standard amount of what a ton is, except it's made out of crap.
Oh, that's awkward. It must smell bad too. No, a crap ton is
really
like
good for growing crops on, though.
I'm
I
happy.
didn't mean crap like that. I meant like crap like stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like wires in this case. And...
So a crap ton, because this is important to the functioning of First Spin, okay, is like anything more than 4 wires. Yeah, like the I2C thing.
So
I think
you're like that ancient African tribe that has 1, 2, and many.
Yeah.
Right.
For their counting.
Exactly.
Ant math, yeah.
Exactly. Because each of those modules, I think it was 3 modules, they required a power, a ground wire, and then a serial clock and a serial data line, right? So that was 12 wires there, and then I had to make sure they connected to the right pins and such.
Mm-hmm.
On the prop BOE. I think that's what I used, right? So that being more than 4, and it was also a big deal because I wasn't using the prototyping breadboard that was on the prop BOE. I was like going out of my comfort zone and using a completely different breadboard, which I know to most people they're like, okay, really, that's not that big a deal. But to me, I'm like, okay, whoa.
So you had much more breadboard space.
Correct. Because remember...
Was it one of those fine Todic.com?
No, it was not a Todic.com one. It was actually a...
What the heck?
I know.
You have like 20 of those.
No, it was the original one that John S. From Arizona gave me. When I first started electronics, he sent me a care package, and in the care package was this amazing breadboard kit from like Radio Shack in the 1970s, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it was an 80s era.
Yeah.
Actually.
It still works.
That's an acceptable substitute.
Right.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Right.
Pretty much anybody who listens to this show would probably recognize it.
Right. And I mean, yeah. So and the original thing was for me to put as many different modules as I could. I still might do that. I might do non-I2C ones next week. I don't know. Anyway, that's what a crap ton means. So
in a roundabout way.
In a roundabout.
It's a threshold math system.
Right.
Anything that's more than Addie actually wants to do is a crap ton.
Yeah, probably crap ton of work. Crap ton of studying. Don't judge me. Okay, and then the second, are you planning to do an episode or 2 on implementing the XBee modules to the propeller? One of the many things I enjoy about your episodes is that you not only cover what and how to, but also what not to do, which helps me avoid letting the smoke out. Great to have you back. Thanks! Warm fuzzies.
So normally we let Addie ask the questions and we answer them, but the fact of the matter here is Addie has used XBees 10 times more often than Roy has,
I
and
think
I haven't
most
messed with them.
folks-
So yeah, I guess we're gonna
Yeah.
ask you
I've
the
used-
questions this week.
I've used XBees like twice.
Really? Only twice? How do you do it?
So even more than 10 times more often.
Wait,
than Roy.
how do you make your things wireless without XBees?
Well, I haven't made very many things wireless.
Gasp.
I put one on a robot and I put one on my computer and I made them talk to each other. That was like the extent of my XBee.
Man.
I was working with Annie the other day, working on making something wireless through IR.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
but
see.
that's different.
Yeah, but that's like analog
line,
wireless.
line of sight wireless.
Right.
Well, in a big white room like this, line of sight is a little bit less important with IR because it bounces around.
Mm-hmm.
And penetrates your body tissues. Awkward. Okay. So let me just give the basics. So
What's an XBee?
I'm gonna get to that. It is a
This sounds
really
like a crap
neat
ton of work.
Whisker.
How many wires does it need?
1 second. Hold your horses. I'm trying to explain this. Okay, so it is essentially this really nice tiny package, and it uses radio frequencies to create a serial link between two items, depending on where your XBees are placed. So one XBee could be connected to your computer, one XBee could be connected to, Roy's robot, and through the use of awesome radio waves, it creates a link for you. A pretty, I would say, reliable link, too.
So like sort of a bridge for your full duplex serial?
Yeah. Yes, I would
Mhm.
say that works well.
You can also do packet mode where it sends packets of data instead of just serial communication.
Correct.
But that's more
Correct.
advanced.
And so for those who don't quite get what that means is you can send like bursts of information, packet. So you can say, I want to send the word happy, and it will send the word happy instead of HAPPY.
And we're
Like
talking
that.
serial, so you're not actually sending HAPPY.
You're sending ASCII.
The ASCII, numbers for those letters.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I came to realize that ASCII was used a lot.
Yeah, ASCII's like
Because-
absolutely, one of the bbest things ever.
Right. Because if you send like a 13 over XBees, you're going to get a carriage return.
hmm
Right.
So,
10 is a line feed.
Right.
32
Of course,
is a space.
Of course, in the modern age, they tend to use Unicode
Yeah.
encoded in something like UTF-8. which
I don't
has-
like these newfangled Unicodes.
Yeah, but
like my 8-bit
UTF-8,
ASCII.
the first 127 symbols of UTF-8 are ASCII, so it maps to the
Yeah,
same.
and the first 127 characters of ASCII are ASCII.
all right, you guys lost me. But let's get back to
But-
XBees. So the so Parallax has this cool XBee wireless kit, and it uses Series 1 XBees, which I think are probably super easy compared to the Series 2 or Pro series or ZigBee series or whatever.
So
no idea
you've
series.
only got experience with Series 1.
Right, which is what is used in Parallax's XBee Wireless Pack. And so what they have in this pack is a USB adapter.
Is
Yeah.
that the thing that you made me solder up for you? Like
No.
put pins on it or something?
No, that is this. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So
Okay.
there is a USB adapter, so you can just plug the little RF module, the little XBee module into this board, plug your USB cable in, and voila, you can program the XBee that way. Or you can
So that's the
program
way to
it
connect the module directly to the computer through
right.
USB.
Correct. And then the other one is not a propeller, but a microcontroller adapter, right? So you can solder headers onto it, plug it into a breadboard, link those certain wires to your microcontroller, whether it be Arduino, PIC, or Propeller, and then you can program it via the microcontroller.
So that adapter is to XBee and a microcontroller, as first spin is to Addie and microcontrollers.
Kinda, yeah.
It's an adapter.
Yeah.
It allows it to work.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, okay.
You really only need 4 wires connected from your XBee to your microcontroller.
So what does an XP
Right.
what does an XBee module talk? How does it communicate with a microcontroller?
It talks through its data out and data in pins.
Are those serial lines? Are those I2C? What are they?
They are serial lines.
They're just
Straight up.
simple 2-wire serial.
Correct. So if we go to learn.parallax.com, again, it has quite a bit of information here. And the XBee tutorial that Propeller provides is probably the best reference I've been able to use in terms of how to work with XBees. It gives you really good examples, good code, good solid code too. And let's see. Let's look at the hardware, because we always look at the hardware. So the Propeller, it can use 3.3 volts or it can use 5 volts, which is perfect, right?
You mean the XBee can?
Yeah.
When it has the adapter.
Right. Correct.
Without the adapter, it's actually 3.3 volts.
Is it?
Only. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a new thing. I guess that explains a lot, because actually, so some folks, if you don't have the Propeller Board of Education, which is what I use, you can...
You would be using the microcontroller adapter that we were
Right.
just talking about.
Right. And that's what I used on the prop demo board, I think, when one of my prop BOEs pooped out.
So the Board of Education just has the XBee adapter built right into its board, essentially.
Oh, it's so convenient. Like, if you guys want to use XBees, get the prop BOEs. It will make your life so much more easy, because it just has a little slot. It has a little...
Plug it right in.
It has like XBee, and then you just plug it in, and that's it. You don't have to worry about power. You don't have to worry about connections. Except for connecting the data out and data in pins to...
So yeah, it's not actually routed on the board between the XBee module and the Propeller I/O pins. You actually have to sort of jump in between one header and some of the exposed I/O pins that are available next to the little breadboard there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the BOE, they have the SD card, the VGA port, and the XBee are all on a little bank of jumper pin holes on the board that you can then choose which ones to hook up to the Propeller and use.
Right.
You can actually hook them all up if you want to, but it allows you to configure it yourself and not use up the pins automatically.
Right. So that's one thing I had to remember, was to connect the data out and the data in from the XBee to actual pins on the Propeller, because essentially if you don't connect them, well, then nothing is happening.
It's like you don't have an XBee.
Correct. So I thought we'd go through some just a brief basics of the hardware. So we have... The best thing, obviously, is to look at your adapters to make sure you're connecting the right pins. But you have your VSS, which is ground. You have your VCC, which on the prop is usually to 3.3 volts. Or if you're using...
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're using an Arduino or some other controller that wants 5 volts, then you should hook it up to the VDD pin on the adapter, because the adapter has a regulator to go down to the 3.3 volts that the XBee needs.
Right. And then you have your D out and your data out and your data in pin, and that's pretty much that. So hookup is actually quite easy.
And I just want to add one more thing. The adapter board has a little level translator chip built into it, so that it will do the translation between the 3.3 and 5 volts for those boards that need 5 volts for the data in and data out.
Right.
And the prop's not one of those, but there are some out there.
Right. Yeah, and they have a simple adapter board for things like the prop where you can just hook it straight up to 3.3 volts and do your data in and out directly.
And let me just see if I can find. So let's assume you have it connected to a prop demo board or your prop BOE. Again, get the prop BOE if you don't already have it, because for XBees, working with XBees, it's really super easy. And you want to make it, I don't know, send you some information. So the easiest usually is just the...
I've got a nice use case for you that I can ask questions about.
Yeah.
I've got this proto synth thing that I built. It uses a propeller as sort of its core. It's a keyboard, and you can push the keys and it plays music on the prop, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to be able to expand the I/O capabilities of the thing, but I'd not only like to expand it just on the breadboards that are built into the synthesizer, but to an external breadboard that sits over across the room or whatever and has a whole collection of circuits on it.
Mm-hmm.
So an XBee seems like it might be a fun choice for just a serial connection in between those two banks of breadboards.
Yeah. And I mean, if you just treat it like any serial connection, that's pretty much how you do it. You have to interface with the object, the XBee object, XBee underscore object underscore 2.
Where can I find that?
You can find it in the object exchange.
Okay, so at Parallax Object Exchange they have one.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember hearing about having to set these XBee modules up before they're really ready to be used this way. Like you have to like set one as... I don't know. You've gone
that's Series 2.
Series 2?
So Series 1 is really simple because they kind of work out of the package. They talk, they're on equal footing with each other. But Series 2, you have to do something special where like one of the XBee modules is like Big Boss, and then all the other XBee modules have to report back to it.
That's mesh networking stuff?
Right.
Can Series 1 modules do that too?
I think you can update them and reconfigure them into that mode.
Cool. So if I wanted like a collection of little breadboard boxes that each had their own little things on it, they could all talk to the central one and they would all be able to not crosstalk and whatnot.
Yeah, you can do that.
Well, you could do that with Series 1 even in serial mode because each one has an ID and you can say, I want to talk to number 1 now and then I want to talk to number 2 now when you send your serial data.
Right. Like you can actually change what frequency you talk on out of like 16 frequencies. You can change what channel you talk on. You can change what IDs you're talking to. So really, if you're smart about how you organize, your XBees and how you label them, you could have a complete, like you could have multiple networks talking over each other.
And they wouldn't even know.
Exactly.
That's handy.
Yeah. And I like Series 1 because you're not forced into that, Big Boss. I don't know, maybe it's a master-slave configuration, but, you're not forced into that. You can
reconfigure the Series 2 ones also.
Really?
They're all reconfigurable with the software. Yeah.
I thought with Series 2 you had to.
No, they just come that way out of the box.
Oh, I should tell the other people then, because I think that was their biggest issue, was having to force the XBees into, or having to force their design into using that master-slave configuration.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all are configurable with different firmwares to work different ways.
Gotcha.
But you have to, it's a little more advanced because you have to get the XTU software and you have to go to the XBee side.
I was going to ask Addie, I've seen you playing with this software on a lot of the XBee demos that you've done for Toymaker television, Tymkrs.com. There's a lot of videos linked through our YouTube channel of Addie playing with XBees.
Yep.
But this software that Roy just brought up, what is that?
X-CTU is Digi's software for interfacing with these XBees. And I'm sure with a bunch of their other wireless modules, but it's essentially, it can do checks on whether or not your XBee is functional, is working properly, is identifiable, it can identify what the configuration settings are in your particular module.
Now, is there a difference between configuration settings and the flashing new firmware that you guys were talking about?
Oh yeah. There's separate things.
So maybe the thing I was thinking about when Addie was setting up her XBees was configuration settings.
Yes.
So did you have to configure your XBees to work the way you wanted them to?
I didn't.
By default, they work at some slow baud rate like 9600 baud.
Yeah.
So if you want it to go a little faster, you'll want to run the tool to change their baud rate up by default. Now, I believe there's a command to do that on the fly, but it's easier to just reconfigure them all to work at whatever speed you want.
Right.
All right. So if I wanted to get started using these things, I wouldn't necessarily even need the software, but if I did want to change some configuration things or test to make sure everything was working,
or change IDs,
I can download that for free, I assume.
Yes. Yes. And it actually has a serial terminal inside of it, so you can program. So there's a couple ways you can configure the settings. You can either program through the X-CTU serial terminal, or you can use like the little modem configuration tab. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can just,
because I've seen
like,
Jeremy
drop-down
Blum go through and manually change the configuration settings through a serial connection, and that seemed like it was very 1960s.
Yeah, well, it's like
right up your alley,
AT8. So say you want to change the channel from C to D or something.
I'm not really asking the questions I would ask. I'm asking the questions that people
I would ask.
who are really like just getting into it would ask. I mean, I understand how all this stuff works, but yeah, I would totally dig the 1960s way of approaching an XBee. That's totally my way of approaching it. But I'm assuming our listeners probably aren't as crazy as me.
Well, but that's also one thing to note is that all you really need is a serial connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can reconfigure them all with just commands on the serial terminal,
right?
And a couple of resets, because if you change
have you could have a propeller do your programming of the configuration settings too. If it's just a serial connection, then you can actually not even use software to do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I have primarily used this with X-CTU because that's how the Parallax tutorial kind of packages it. It's just
so I can just go to a tab in that and fill in some text boxes or change some sliders or something like that and hit apply, and it'll just do it.
Yep.
That's convenient.
Yep.
That's like squeeze bottled mustard.
Remember when we had to use it in the jar?
Yeah, you try to get the knife in there and it's just big enough for you to fit your hand in and get it covered with mustard. Yeah.
I never stuck my hand in mustard. I was a good kid.
I see.
I'm dubious of you being a good kid.
Dude, me? I was the best.
Total troublemaker.
Are you kidding me? Straight A's and everything. I was a good kid. I did my homework. You know what I did? I read books before I had to go to school. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyway, any other questions about XBees? It's kind of difficult to go into exactly how to use them. I will say this is what I know.
Well, it's not, from what I've seen from you doing, it doesn't look very complicated. You jump 2 wires across to, from pins on the prop over to the header on the little adapter that's built into your BOE, or to pins on your adapter. If you're just using a microcontroller adapter, it's same thing, just 2 wires.
Right.
And power, obviously.
And ground.
That's part of power.
I see.
The positive doesn't work without the ground.
I get it.
Yeah, there's no circuit there, a flow, circular,
minor technicalities.
Yeah, and so you got a couple of wires there, and then you're basically, using the XBee object.
Yeah.
To talk to the little thing, and yeah, it's all done and ready to go. On prop anyway. I'm sure it's probably pretty easy on other platforms too.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's pretty much just a serial connection. So the object that she's talking about has a lot of advanced XBee specific stuff pre-built into it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Parallax serial terminal has a bunch of custom stuff for dealing with their serial terminal custom characters and things like that.
And
but you really only need the serial connection. So you don't even need an XBee object to talk to the XBee.
So you could do it with full duplex serial and talk to your
Exactly.
XBee module.
Yes.
In fact, that's what the Kickstart does. It just uses full duplex serial.
Cool.
Yep.
Because that's a very well vetted piece of software on the prop. So I would definitely opt for that if that's what's going on.
Right. I'm trying to think. Brian, if you are trying to make different modules wireless, I have a great resource for you. It's actually our Tumblr page. And I think I do have a link that has all of the links to the code and such, but it's the same configuration for just about everything. There's a base node and a remote node. Your base node could be your computer, your remote node could be the little robot. And with a couple of wires, depending on what kind of microcontroller board you're using, it's really easy because the code is the same on the base node, I think, at all times, just about, if I remember correctly. And the remote node with the sensors, the only one that has different code.
Right.
And that's
it's just code to interface with that particular sensor.
Right. Exactly. It's all it is you once you get the pattern, getting it to work with the XBees is a matter of like copy pasting one variable, one object, and one line of serial code.
Yeah, and Addie's been working through these one at a time on our YouTube channel, giving code examples and doing actual like physical applications. Last time I think it was the PIR sensor.
Yeah, security system.
So on one side you had this PIR sensor, which she was asking about on the show while she was working on it. We explain how it works and all that, and then she goes and she turns it into something that does detection and then sends over an XBee serial link to another board elsewhere that was using Joe Grand's EMIC2 text-to-speech little module to actually go intruder alert. So you could have a wireless link between your sensor and your actual alarm speaker thing. And what was it before that? The zombie bait?
Yep, zombie bait.
She built a little remote control, basically, on one of her boards.
Yep.
With a 5-position switch, which we've covered on this show before. And on the other side, she built a prop BOE into the inside of a stuffed animal and had an LED on there that could light up and flash the belly of the stuffed animal to make it glow.
Yep.
And an EMIC2 module in there so that the stuffed animal could say things. And depending on which direction she was pushing on the remote control's 5-position switch, it would say something different. The basic idea was, if zombies are chasing you, you put the stuffed animal down, you run away and hide, and they get close to you, you push down, and the little stuffed animal says something. What did it say?
I'm yummy, or my brains are tasty, or something.
And then the zombie goes and tries to eat that instead of you.
Correct.
So, XBees can save your life.
Right. And for those who do know XBees somewhat and are trying to troubleshoot it, if it's not your wiring, it's going to be your code.
It's always your code.
It's always Addie's code.
Hey, no, that is not true. I've had a couple of times where I didn't hook up the data out and data in, and I was like, what is this? Where is my XBee?
So sometimes it's the wiring, but always it's the code.
You could technically change that particular wiring problem in software, Addie.
Really?
So technically, that was still your code.
No, but I didn't have any wires whatsoever.
You just didn't hook it up, period?
Yeah.
Because I forgot. You can't fix that in software.
No.
Because I forgot about it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just plug this in the prop BOE. It'll be easy. It'll go work. Wait. Whisker.
That's not as bad as the time that you spent all that time working on getting one of those modules working and you were very irritated with it. And after like a week of working on it, you realized that you actually had a different module plugged in than the one you thought you did.
Is there a little white thing on it? No.
I think I remember spotting that on the stream and asking.
You did. It was hours.
That's not the right module.
The real answer to your question here, Brian, is that we've covered all of this. We just haven't necessarily covered it on first spin.
Right.
We do a lot of other things. So you've got the zombie tech. We've got.
I wish I could explain it in a half an hour episode, but it's a lot of. You have to go through the examples to really get a feel for how they work.
Which she has done
from a newbie
on Toymaker Television. She has gone through all of the tutorials and shown how to wire it up, like on video, and shown example code and like right there, examples on how to use it and whatever. So
most people skip it.
Definitely go over to the YouTube channel and check that out.
Yeah.
And the Tumblr. There's lots of data
retention
on the Tumblr
rates
also.
for the XBee segments are pretty low.
Everything is linked from tymkrs.com. So you can get here, you can get to any of those other things too.
Yes.
We do a lot of, other stuff, and sometimes we don't have time to cover things on this show, but we do have time to get into detail over on the
Tumblr.
Yeah. And
I'll put some links.
The video show too.
I'll put some links. Not all of them because it's like a month's worth, but I'll put some links. Keep sending the emails. We like them.
Yeah, and if anybody else out there has questions, I mean, we are completely prepared to sort of attack them on force here.
Yeah.
So,
or objects you want us to go through, because at this point, I don't have any more modules to go through. So, I mean, we've covered the manual, we've covered the modules, we've covered I2C. I'm not quite sure
I think
what's
I'm
next.
getting ready to like hand Addie some prop boards that she hasn't used before, maybe the Propeller ASC or something like that. And,
that'd be interesting.
Give her something that's not a prop BOE to play with and see what she can do.
Don't take it away.
Yeah, I really like the quick start board personally because you got access to every single pin.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to do things that take up every single pin. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week. You can find the show every Tuesday evening at firstspin.tv. There's an RSS feed there if you want to have it automatically download to your iTunes or your phone.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people like to listen to it in the car or at work. So, there's that, and then there's a nice play button right on the webpage. Really easy to use.
Yep.
So that's it for us. We're done. We'll be back next week with another episode of First Spin. Until then, bye.
Ciao.
Later.